Hello, everyone. My name is Leigh Fowler, and welcome back to another round of the Ready to Amplify interview series. I'm here today with artist and author Jennifer Robinson. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Lee, for having me.
I'm so excited. We have a lot to talk about in this power half hour. But first, I do want to let you guys know that I met Jennifer last week. No, it was like November 1st. It was a launch day for me
Yes,
for Ready to Amplify. And
yes,
we were booth buddies in a way. There was one
yes.
booth between us, booth buddies. I better be careful how I say that because that's a tongue twister in itself. And Jennifer published just about a month and a half ago this adult, would you call it a coloring book meets journal meets
Mm,
empowerment,
Yeah, I call it a
inspiring?
self-care coloring book because I guess it is, you do color in it, but it's also full of affirmations and self-love worksheets that brings you into back to self-love.
I love it, and you can see I already
You've been
started coloring in
coloring.
there.
Yes,
And my son, he's 6. We color together often, and it's quite peaceful together when we do it. And he's like, mommy, like can I get in there and start coloring? So he actually did
that's
a
great.
little bit of coloring with me.
That's
But,
great.
but then I was like, okay, I need some time alone. I need
Yes,
some time all alone.
that's
So
good.
those of you that are watching today, we're going to talk about the Jennifer's journey in becoming this published artist, because you've been an artist since you were a very young girl. Is that right? And then you were
I
drawing and
when I was young, yes, and in high school, but then I did leave it for a long time, and this is me coming back into it again.
I
That
love
was
it.
part of my journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we come back to, our truth and who we are.
Hmm.
And so we're going to talk about that. But I want, I think that the thing that is so beautiful about this book is that it was at first just for you. It was something you
It
did
was.
to heal and to
Yes.
get through the separation, divorce from your husband, to
Yes.
heal
Yes.
from that experience, but also to then it kind of evolves. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, about
Sure. Yes.
flow,
Hmm.
about the women in your life that have made an impact. We're going to share a little bit about how the power of the village and the tribe come into play,
Absolutely.
and deadlines, imposter syndrome. Like there are so many
All of
golden,
that.
delicious nuggets we're going to share,
Yeah.
insights that everyone is going to probably relate to, including myself. And I think that, your bio says your mission is to inspire, empower women and their daughters, and really get them through the self-care coloring book series. And so I
Yes.
said series because
Yes.
this book was released 6 to 8 weeks ago, but you do have 2 more in the works. Is that
Yes, I
that's
do.
we
All in
have
the same butterfly theme. Exactly.
Love it. I love it. So possibly December 1st, we have Celebration of Women. And then
Mhm.
coming out in the new year, we have Celebration of Daughters. So to have
Yes.
three books in one year, like
Yeah.
this is like, you are amplifying like none other.
I'm trying. I'm trying. Yeah, I
Aw,
think
well,
having
very
that purpose and passion behind it, though, has really made a big difference in what's happening in my life in the books that are coming to fruition. It's
Well,
made a
yeah,
big difference.
we were talking about that too just before we started. Is that, yes, there's the passion, but there's still that process of like you coming out behind the pages of the book and being visible, and
Mm.
and tell us a little bit about that, because before, what happened, you were telling me a little bit about some stuff you were doing to prepare to go live, and we all have our own processes,
Oh.
and last night it sounds like you were very prepared, and then what is the thought process that goes on behind emerging into the world as a new artist, published
Yes.
artist? Yeah, it's different.
Well,
It's a
and
new role.
yes, coming on for this interview was causing me a lot of anxiety, actually. And I do use meditation as a tool to help me to ground myself. But last night I decided, you had sent me a few interview questions, things we might talk about. So I sat down and I was being very left brain last night, and I wrote all these points down. I got all my sticky notes on everything organized. I had them all ready to go. Before our bed last night, I put them all on a big piece of paper and sat on my bathroom counter. This morning I got up and I was doing my makeup and I was blow drying my hair, and the paper was on the bathroom counter, and the blow dryer blew the whole paper right into the toilet.
Oh my goodness.
Now,
Yeah.
God's clean toilet, thank goodness.
Right.
But I was like, are you kidding me? And I kind of took it like, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. I took that as a sign that, you know what, the universe was telling me Jennifer, just go with the flow. I picked those papers out of the toilet. They're all wrinkled and I could barely read them. But I thought this morning, I just thought, a few minutes before we connected, I just sat in quiet and I connected to my higher self, I call it, and said, okay, whatever comes out of my mouth is what the message is supposed to be. Just give me that guidance in those words, and I'm just going to have a good time and hope that the message that I'm supposed to say is what comes out, and forget the notes, I guess. So yeah, it was a good lesson this morning.
Hey, you know what? I don't think we can ever be prepared for the journey that we go on.
Hmm.
And, I think that I like to send my guests these questions and then, and they're on my screen, but I just like, I can't stop, just hearing and going with the flow because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to
Yeah,
hear and listen and just go with it because what's meant to be is meant to be. And yeah, I'm totally with you on that same page.
yeah,
And of course there's this transition that we all go through, like in, so I'm gonna go back to my interview mode,
yes,
but this was your healing journey. This was a very personal project that
yeah.
you were working on in 2014.
Yes.
So
So in 2012, I separated and left a marriage of 19 years, became a single mom of 3 kids. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but there was some lightness and freeing to it. There was a lot of control in that marriage. There was emotional abuse in the marriage, especially more towards the end when I was in my late 30s and trying to discover myself again. Um, so after that, I did start to date, and I met someone who was a wonderful, wonderful person, and he's actually my husband now. And what
yay.
happened was I thought that once had left that marriage, that everything was great. I was free. There was, like I say, there was a lot of lightness to it, and that control wasn't there anymore. And then when I met him, he was the complete opposite of the man I had been married to. And I can see now what was happening to me, but there was a lot of emotional baggage that kept coming up when he
Yeah.
would say things to me in wonderful ways, tell me how beautiful I was every day. And I couldn't figure it out at the time, but I would have these breakdowns. And I think it was because it wasn't something I was used to. Which is a big part of this whole journey as an entrepreneur as well, is putting yourself in places and surrounding yourself with people who are in a higher level or a better place, because it does feel uncomfortable at first. So
Yeah.
when that
Yeah.
happened, he was my boyfriend at the time. All these triggers kept happening, and he said, you talked about how you used to love art when you were a little girl, and I really did, but society had told me that you don't make money as an artist, and I pushed that
Mm.
aside, and I went towards my next love, which was kids, and I have been working with preschool children for a long time. And so he said, why don't you just try drawing? And I thought, I hadn't drawn in like 20 years. So I did. I sat at the kitchen table and started to draw and cry and draw and cry. And it was very healing. And what came out of me was these, at the beginning, were these women that were butterflies, and they were very um, wounded looking. So every
Wow.
week I would pick up my pencil and I'd sit down and I would draw. And that happened every week. I would cry and I would draw, and it really was helping me to heal a lot. And I was doing a bit of writing as well in between. And then one day a friend saw the illustrations. She said, you really should do something with these. And I'd
Yeah.
always wanted to publish a book. It had been there for a very long time. I write as well on the side, and so I thought, hey, I could do a coloring book. And it was something that I was doing for myself to heal as well. I was coloring, mindful coloring, and that was helping me. So I joined a Facebook group that's actually a coloring book author support group, and that helps you to how to create a coloring book. And I went down that road, and that was in about when I was done drawing. That was around 2014, but it did
Wow.
take me 2 years. So it was 2016 when the first version of the book came out,
Yeah.
because I had to learn. I realized very quickly I wanted something quality, and I had to learn how to take my pencil drawings and make them digital. And after reaching out to my community, I was in the MAFE group, which is the Milton Area Female Entrepreneurs.
Ah, yeah. Shout out to
And
the Maves.
yes, and the mompreneur group, I put a shout out and asked if anyone knew how to do Photoshop or something to help me. And this one woman, she was great. She said, come and meet me and let me show you about Adobe Illustrator. And she sat with me, and just out of the goodness of her heart, and I thought, why is she doing this, And
Yeah.
she taught me the basics. It took me a year or so to learn how to draw digitally, and then so it was 2 years later, 2016, the first version of the book came out, and I was super excited. Published it on Amazon, and then I didn't really tell anybody about it. Um, that imposter
Oh.
syndrome hit me. I sold 20 books maybe in that year, and I just kind of tucked it aside, and still continued to go to be around the women that were entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
I would talk about how I would paint, but I never really told anyone about the book. And I don't know, I couldn't figure why that was. And
Yes.
then so that took me a couple years, but um, fast forward to 2018. So the
Yeah.
book was settled this time on Amazon, and the bookhead was always nagging me in the back of my head that it wasn't what it was supposed to be, and I couldn't figure it out what it was. And then I had this really, really vivid dream, and Maria Locker, who's the founder of the Mompreneur Group, was in that dream, and it was so vivid. And I woke up instantly that morning and knew that the book had to be something bigger than me. It was to help women, and I knew instantly that it needed self-care worksheets in there. It needed the affirmations and all of that, and it was to be a healing book. And that's kind of
Okay.
how it
Whoa.
became, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what launched a couple months ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
And I love that you reach out to, Maria is like one of those women that just empowers and
absolutely.
inspires and connects people. And yeah, like she's just another shout out to the mompreneurs for sure. They've
Yes.
been a part of my journey. And it takes a village to kind of like sometimes you need that sounding board or you need to throw that idea out there. And
Hmm.
I just think it's like, yeah, it's a process of learning the technology, like you said, like the illustrator and like bringing in
Yes.
the digital and creating a quality product, but then also like pulling out like what you're meant to do and finding yourself in that journey
Hmm.
and your voice. And man,
Yes.
it is it's incredible. And so I know right now that you are working on your next book, which is a
Yes.
celebration of women.
Yes.
And I know this is a very popular thing with authors is deadlines and the things that come up. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what it's like. Like, are you putting pressure on yourself right now to create, or like how are you getting aligned? How are you working with flow? Like, because I think sometimes we're ready to amplify. You're ready
Hmm.
to do this next book. You've set the deadlines, and then it's
Yes.
like, so what's happening
Yes.
here? Tell me more about
So
this. Stage, is it stage right?
yeah, I don't, and I've already not met my deadline. I really wanted the second book to be out November 1st, and I'm looking at November 30th now for the celebration of women. Um, and I think that what's happened in the past, and this is where I'm moving towards, is when I put those deadlines on myself, I was in that real left brain part,
Mhm.
and trying to be very practical, just like last night, writing all these sticky notes. And over the last few months, I've really been tapping into using my meditation every day, visualizing and getting to that flow space, and following
Mhm.
and listening. And I'm finding now it's coming a lot faster. When I was trying to push, um, it was like I would get stuck, kind of like someone talked about
Yes.
writer's block. For me, it was
Yes.
a drawing block, an artist block, and I would end up in tears at times, like this deadline is there, and I would see it, and it wasn't coming. Um, so part of what I try and teach is self-care to women. I had to say, hey, okay, I need to practice this for myself as well. So I had to stop and listen and learn to be kind to myself and get back
Yeah.
into flow and say it's okay to feel like I've failed a little bit in some areas, but that's okay because that's a part of the journey. Um, when I started, I thought that, this is my goal. I'm very left brain, but I'm also woo woo, got the right brain, and I would put
Yeah.
things down on paper and go for it. But I've learned that this journey is very zigzag. I go one way and then I get there and I realize, oh, this is not what's supposed to be happening. And I would get very upset before, and now I go, okay, this is good. This is contrast. This is teaching me a lesson. I'm supposed to go this way. So the
Oh,
last six
yes,
months have
yes.
really been like that, and I think that's why it's starting to happen quicker because I'm
Yeah.
finally relaxing into it.
Oh
And
my
I think,
goodness.
yeah.
I think so many people need to hear that too, and just being gentle to yourself in the process and not judging, ourselves in this journey. And it is
Hmm.
the journey, not necessarily the destination, right? So
Yes.
if we can celebrate those moments, and I love the theme of your book of celebration of women,
Hmm.
I will share that. Oh, now, okay, so I'm not going to get emotional. I don't usually get emotional, but this
I
is
have
like
Kleenex.
these. Oh no, okay.
And
my
okay.
Kleenex box is empty. Right
And
now.
you know what? I'm an empath, and so if you cry, I will probably cry. Just
Oh
tell you.
no, okay. Well, we all know, like, I'm here to inspire, make an impact too. And my book is ready to amplify November 1st. And I was, saying to my husband on the evening of November 1st, I was like, Jeff, I did not plan a launch party. Like we're sitting here at a coffee shop in between robot class and dinner. And I was like, I did not celebrate. And I think that when I talk with my clients and, um, they don't celebrate either. So I think that, like, your book, I mean, this is actually really needed for people to learn how to celebrate their wins and their failures. And, like, tell me more about this next book. Like, what was the motivation for you? Because I mean, that's pretty weird, right? Like, I mean, that we are doing these amazing things in
Hmm.
business as women in business, and here's the book, right, ready to amplify. Like,
Yes.
it's a real thing. This is a real thing. And yet we're not, like, how do we celebrate our teacher? I'm just gonna shut up and ask the
No,
question.
you're right. You're right because of, and I'm not sure if I know the answer, but I know that men, when they do something, they will celebrate, and they don't seem to be afraid to shout it out and say what they've done. And as women, I think a lot of it stems from when we were little girls. And
Yeah.
you know, I think that this is a time for us to celebrate, to realize that we're celebrating. So here's what I feel like. So one of the quotes in one of my books, if I can get it right, is basically, I'm following my dreams so my children
Mhm.
will know it's okay to follow theirs. That's one of the quotes, the
Oh,
affirmations that goes into a celebration of women, and that really hit me home at home with me because I realized
mhm.
that if I don't celebrate and show those great things that I'm doing, my daughters, they are watching me. And, my girls are, my middle daughter's turning 21 and my oldest is 24. And it was a big fear I had when I, left my husband and the marriage broke up. But it was also a reason why, because I was fearful that they would think that that was normal in a marriage and attract that. So as a woman, that's
Yes.
one of the things I need to do is to, even when I feel uncomfortable, because I still feel uncomfortable every day, I know that it's important that I do it for my daughters, for other women who are afraid to talk about their accomplishments. When you
Yes.
do, I believe it gives the other women permission to as well. And I think there's a difference between people saying it in a braggy kind of way, but saying in a
Mhm.
real vulnerable, authentic way, and I think I mentioned this to you before when we met at the Mompreneur Speaker Series, and Erica M
Yeah.
was there. And
Yes.
she did a great talk. And one of the things that really stuck with me, she said, she talked about to remove the word just from your vocabulary. And that really stuck with me because I remember when the first version of my coloring book came out, I would
Mhm.
say, if when I did talk about it, I just made this little thing and I'd slide across the table. It's just a coloring book.
Yes.
And I used the
Yes.
word just a lot. So I went up and talked to Erica Emma and I said, I thanked her for that. That really hit me. And I think that we downplay our accomplishments. So when I am talking about something that I've done, I try and put those women and their energy and their spirit around me and think I'm doing this because I want to give someone else permission to know that they can as well.
Yeah.
Because women are amazing, amazing beings. They really are. And we need to lift each other up and we need to shine our light so that other people will join us in doing that as well. So I actually,
Oh,
at this moment, you made me think of, you talked about what is this other book going to entail? Because the first book is a book of hope and healing, and the butterflies do start off very wounded looking, and they grow. But in the second book
yeah.
is more uplifting. Can I take a second just to read one of the poems that's going to be
Oh,
in it? I
yes.
just
Let
wrote
me
it
let me
actually.
find the title.
I just
Poem
wrote it
from.
last week.
Hold on. Poem from Jennifer's new book. Okay, I'm gonna display this. Okay, good, good. Okay, go for it.
It's a very short one. I actually wrote this sitting last week. I was at the doctor's walk-in clinic, and he got called away to surgery, so we had a long wait. And I took a negative experience into a positive one. I met all these wonderful women in the waiting room. We were all waiting for him. We were there 2.5 hours, so I decided I would write. So this is the poem that came out, and they asked me to read it to them. It was very funny. And I call it "To Be Woman." The wonder and mystery of a woman's eyes, the power and beauty of her heart. The curve of her hips, the softness of her lips, is what ultimately sets her apart. She's a wondrous creature, a giver of life, a warrior, a lover, a friend. She will wipe away your tears, walk hand in hand through your fears, and battle your foes to the end. This creature called woman has amazing powers. She's a vision of divine strength and grace. To be woman is love. To be woman is life. To be woman is the most magical thing you'll embrace. So that poem is going to be in my second book, and that one really,
Oh,
I wanted to do that more in an uplifting tribute to women, where it more not as much as healing as the first one. So that's kind of the vibe I'm trying to go with. Just to us to we need to realize how beautiful and strong we really are, and I just want people to know how important self-care really is.
oh,
So,
it is not just a buzzword. And thank you for sharing that preview of your next book
welcome.
and just that experience of where it came from too. And it's just something that um like just the process, I think, of just sitting there and coloring and thinking and giving ourselves space, and it's so nurturing, and it's something where we're not really taught how to really take care of ourselves, like when we
Mhm.
are I don't know, like are we really taught that, like, yeah, you got to brush your teeth and you got to get 8 hours of sleep and these things, but then when you have all this responsibility as a mom or a business owner, and the thing like life, right? We sort of
Mhm.
put self-care at the bottom of
Yes.
the barrel, and it's very common, it's very normal. But I think I like to associate self-care with self-love, and
Yeah.
I never really understood the meaning of self-love until I took a yoga class. And I know this is gonna sound weird, but the instructor said, like, put your hand on your heart
Mhm.
and
Absolutely.
love yourself. And I sat there and I was like, I knew I was in the class and I was like nurturing myself and like really just nurturing my body, but I was like, oh, I love you, Leigh, but it
Yeah.
was so wholesome. It was so re-energizing. I mean, would you equate self-care, self-love, like, is that
Absolutely. I
hand
think
in
that
hand?
I think they're intertwined. Um, I've just started, actually, just did my first self-care and mindful coloring workshop in September.
Yeah.
And one of the things I incorporated into it was a meditation where you meet your inner child.
Ooh,
And
yes.
you would meet little Leigh, as I would call her. And I think that was very profound for the women. They were in tears because I think that that's part of it. We have to heal that little girl, that inner child, because when we are young, we are at our true essence of who we are. And I
Mm,
think if you can tap into that little girl that you were, and that's where my journey came from when I was in a really down, low place. I was on antidepressants and taking some sleeping pills to sleep and all of that when I was in my marriage and the end of my marriage. It
yeah.
wasn't until I did some real personal growth and healing to heal that little girl, which also helps in the healing through the drawing and the coloring. That's what kind of gave me permission to go, hey, this is who I was. And it wasn't that I'm creating a new me, actually I'm finding that the
Mm.
me that I was and I had kind of put aside because of society. Um, and it's hard now with social media, in the 80s when I was in high school, there was no, internet and Facebook and all that. So there's a lot more pressures on us now because, and I think it's something we talked about before, you know, I do the same thing as, someone might see me saying, oh, she's made this beautiful book.
Mhm.
But that's why it's important to talk about how long it took me to get here and the journey behind it. And I think that we see these people doing amazing things, and I do the same thing. We compare ourselves, but I think we have to remember to compare ourselves to where they were in the beginning, right? They may have been 10 years. Like I think of someone like Rachel Hollis, like she took years and
Yeah.
years to get where she
Yes. Yeah.
is.
Mhm.
If you listen and follow her story, but if you aren't paying attention to that, we compare, and then that imposter syndrome comes in, and
Holy.
we feel bad about ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
we all have that light inside us.
we do have that light inside of us, and I think that that reminder, that journey, that it is not it's not an overnight success story for many people. Even the
Hmm.
videos that go viral, like that is not an overnight thing. Like there's a
Yeah.
build up to it. There's a journey along that we go on, and I think we don't talk enough about that journey, and the anxieties that come out of that
Yeah.
responsibility too, of owning your message and finding your voice, and then being in alignment and flow. And
Hmm.
Sarah shares here, we should never compare ourselves to others. We're all in different places in our journey. And that's like,
Exactly.
whoa, that's, it's just so powerful. And, in writing my book, and Ready to Amplify, my vision has been that we all have this magic inside of us. And that the challenge for me is like when I meet wonderful, like yourself, like you have this message to share, and you have this expertise in this background and this journey that so many people
Hmm.
can learn from. And yet technology and the visibility piece here, it can
Yes.
get away. And so I wrote my book. Where the heck is it? I'm gonna do a little plug
And I've been
here.
reading it. It's amazing. I've been reading it. Yeah.
This is for those that are ready to step into that bigger spotlight and to do it in a way that puts they are in alignment with. It is about finding your way in showing up and reaching more people with some best practices and structure and systems around that over the course of 7 days. Even the people that have done this have been like,
Yeah.
wow, like blown away by the impact that they can make just reaching one more person.
Yes.
And for those joining us on replay, those joining us at the beginning, Jennifer, you said too, like I'm going to show up, and I'm throwing away all my sticky notes, and
Yeah.
I'm being led. This was a beautiful interview. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I can't believe it's like the power of half hour is like we're right
Yeah, it's
right
fun.
on the half hour here. But where can we? I know that Sarah was sharing some links, but where's the best place to find you online and keep? Are you sharing some behind the scenes of your work now as you're leading up into the launch of the Celebration of Women Coloring book?
That's where I'm going that direction. So I'm probably most active on Instagram.
Okay, yep.
Um, and I do have, they're both called Butterfly Beauty Self-Care, my Instagram account and my Facebook page. And
Beautiful.
I am going to be, and talk about being visible. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. And
Aw.
one thing I did do was I downloaded your 67 ways to amplify from your website.
Yes,
And
yes,
I loved
yes.
it because it made me realize how many different ways there were, and I didn't have to do them all. So I am very nervous and uncomfortable with Facebook Live, and here I am. So I've
And you've
decided
done
for me,
amazing. Like,
yeah,
I
I
mean, I
realized,
had goosebumps and everything.
yeah. So my next step is for me, I'm going to start a YouTube channel because I decided that I'm going to do some pre-recordings. I want to teach more about self-care and the universe and law of attraction, and remembering that self-care is a daily practice, just like how you used to cycle. You didn't just get on a bike the week before and you rode a race.
Yeah,
You had
yeah.
to work at it every day, and self-care is the same. We don't just fix ourselves and we're all done. It's daily care, and we have days that we fall down, and those are the days that I go for a drive to the lake and I write, or I have a hot bath and listen to my favorite podcast. So I'm hoping that I'll have a YouTube channel in the next month or so. I can start posting some things up there as well. But thank you so much for
Oh,
this, Leigh. It really has meant a lot to me. It's been so amazing to connect with you. And I'm so glad that we were vendor table buddies at the speaker series. I'm so blessed to have met
it
you.
it was just it was just so meant to be. And I was like, you need to be in this interview series, and people need to hear your story. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, things are meant just flowing. And I think that's the
Yeah.
flow and alignment, is that when you have, I always, I don't even know. Yeah, I usually have the book The Alchemist. It's one of my favorite
I haven't
books.
read it and it's on my list. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just something where you go after your personal legend, and often when you are following your heart and following your truth, doors open up and there's
Yes.
flow and alignment. And when you fight your truth, when you fight that alignment, it's harder. It's like an uphill battle. And yet
Hmm.
when you open up to your truth, it's like, smooth sailing. It's just a
Yes,
really cool metaphoric fictional story, and I highly
absolutely.
recommend it. And thank
I
you
will.
again. So we're signing out, and many thanks for being here. Thank you so much. Check out the book at leighfowler.com. There's a book
Yes.
trailer, leighfowler.com/book,
Get the book.
and check it out and start sharing your magic with the world. All right. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you, Leigh.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.